Aren't there characters in Poppy Playtime that just disappeared? Have you ever wondered where the heck Candy Cat is? What really happened to Boxy Boo after the Hour of Joy? And wow, there are so many more missing characters. So in this video, we're going to figure out what happened to them and if they're still alive. Boxy Boo. There's been a lot of talk about what happened to this character. And something everyone is sure about is that Boxy Boo has simply died. But don't worry, it seems everyone was wrong, since there are several clues that point to Boxy Boo still being alive. And in fact, he could be part of the final version of the prototype. Because yes, friends, we still don't have the complete prototype yet. But before I explain this to you, let's first understand what happened with Boxy Boo. The first time we saw this experiment was in the terrifying VHS tape of the massacre at Hour of Joy. We see him in his most terrifying form, mercilessly devouring several Playtime company employees. Because if we remember, Boxy Boo was an ally of the prototype. So with this, we can confirm that he was still alive during the Hour of Joy. But after that, they don't show us anything else about Boxy Boo until the chapter, and this is where the story gets interesting. And also where we find supposed evidence that Boxy Boo has already gone to meet his maker. Since in this episode, when we explore the safe heaven, we can see several drawings made by the toys. We have Boxy Boo next to Pianosaurus. What's really curious is that Boxy's face is crossed out. So this detail could indicate to us that the toys actually think Boxy is already dead. But if this is true, then why isn't Pianosaurio's face crossed out? At least with Pianosaurio, we know he was killed by Doe. But what they didn't take into account is that this event had just happened. So most likely, in safe heaven, they didn't even know yet that Pianosaurio was no longer alive. And if you ask me, Boxy Boo is one of the strongest experiments, and not just anyone could take him down. In fact, I could say for sure that it would be the prototype who has the strength needed to defeat Boxy Boo. So the theory that he simply died and disappeared forever is completely ruled out. In fact, there is hope that we'll see Boxy Boo return in Chapter 6 of Poppy Playtime, but not in the way everyone thinks. No. A pretty important clue that could confirm Boxy Boo's return is that in the VHS of the Hour of Joy, we see important characters alongside Boxy Boo like Huggy Wuggy, Mommy Longlegs, Catnap, and Kissy Missy. And up until this Chapter 5, we've seen all of them except Boxy Boo. We do know the tragic fate of these experiments. Almost all of them have already died and become part of the prototype's body. The only one without a clear explanation is Boxy Boo, which could suggest to us that they're just keeping him, like the final piece of the prototype. And why? Well, think about it. The prototype reuses the parts of its allies for its body, and as we know, Boxy Boo was also its ally. We still have no information about what happened to him, not even anything official. Besides, we can't see anything on its body that belongs to Boxy Boo. And if the prototype merges with Boxy Boo to reach its final form, it would be creating a real jack-in-a-box. But what do you think? Do you think Boxy Boo just disappeared? Now let's talk about one of the most mysterious characters in Poppy Playtime. Candy Cat. We know very little about this cute experiment, and in fact, they didn't even show it to us in the game. They gave us a few cameos, images, and its gameplay mechanic in the Chapter 2 minigame. It was even in this same chapter that they revealed to us that an orphan girl named Michaela Hisup was assigned to the Candy Cat experiment during her time at Game Station. That confirms that Candy Cat was turned into one of the bigger bodies. So, where is she? What did they do to Candy Cat? The real problem is that after the Hour of Joy, she completely disappears from the map. There's no record of her death, not even that the prototype took her, nor that she's still alive. The most logical explanation is that Candy Cat was eliminated during the war between toys. And besides, I don't even think it was because of the prototype, but rather by other better adapted experiments. Possibly one like Catnap or even Doey, who have already shown the ability to eliminate anyone quickly and efficiently. So yes friends, most likely sadly our dear Candy Cat is already resting in peace. Probably it did exist in a larger form, it did survive the hour of joy. But its impulsive urge to eat or possibly attack other experiments ended up turning it into dinner for others. I'm sure you've also wondered, what happened to the other smiling critters? We only saw the terrible endings of Dog Day and Catnap, but what about the others? Well friends, let's start with Kicking Chicken. Everything points to Kicking Chicken, just like Dog Day, trying to escape from the factory, but the prototype caught up with them. As we know, Dog Day was not only stopped, but was punished and tortured for not following the prototype's plan. Both of them tried to get out, but they didn't make it. So, Kicking Chicken was killed by the prototype. Happy Hopscotch also tried on his own, trying to escape by jumping out of the factory. But everything indicates that he fell and died in the attempt. Boba Fett had a different, but equally disturbing fate. His last recording ends with a scream mixed with laughter.
Wanna know what I remember about you?
You? Which fits perfectly with Catnap's red gas. Most likely he died under its effect at the hands of his partner Catnap. Then there's Piggy, and this is where things get much darker. Well, it's believed that due to the lack of food, Piggy started eating the others to survive. In the end, he probably ended up dying of hunger when there was nothing left. Crafty Corn may have also crossed a dangerous line. There are theories that he used blood as red paint, which would imply that he attacked another critter. And if that happened, the most logical thing is that the others killed him. Or that they let him die alone. Bobby Bearhug had a quieter ending. He separated from the group and everything points to him dying alone. Probably from hunger. Although there are those who believe he might still be hiding somewhere in the factory. But there's no clear evidence that he remains. And even though the original smiling craters practically disappeared, small versions of them managed to reach safe heaven in Chapter 4 Seeking Refuge. But even that wasn't enough. They ended up dying in the factory explosion. And this was the tragic end of the smiling craters. So let's move on to Cat B. The story of Cat B is quite interesting, and it's not just that we had one Cat B, there were several. At first we see it as a normal toy. We have to build it to move forward, and in Chapter 2 it appears again as a decorative figure. But everything got pretty dark when they showed us the recordings from Restricted Salvation, and they show us a bloodied Cat B created by the same prototype, where we find out that this version was created from Preston Willard. We know it was a form of punishment imposed by the prototype for all the suffering they caused them. The terrifying thing is that this Cat B couldn't move like the other experiments, he could only move his eyes. With such a cruel fate, it was obvious he wouldn't survive long in a factory full of hungry and angry experiments. So most likely someone simply attacked him, and Cat B couldn't defend himself. Finally we get to Daisy. In Poppy Playtime, we see her everywhere, on posters in Chapters 1 and 2, and sometimes with PJ Pug Pillar, sometimes with other characters. From the beginning, they made us think she would be an important character. She even has her own statue in the game station, as if she were a major character in the game. And even her cardboard figure talks, just like all the others. The truth about Daisy is actually pretty depressing, and not because she died. Rather, it's because she was scrapped from the game. You see, Daisy was actually going to appear at some point in the game. In fact, there's a trailer where you can see her monster version, like a bigger body type. But in the end, they just decided not to include her. Believe it or not, they realized Daisy was too scary. Literally, in tests with kids, they cried when they saw her. So the developers decided to remove her and replace her with Bonzo Bunny because he fit better with the musical minigame theme. So, what does this mean? That Daisy didn't appear in the lore? She disappeared during the game's development? They simply scrapped her before she actually became part of the story? And realistically, with the story already so far along, it's very difficult for them to bring her back as a villain in the next chapter. So Daisy isn't an unsolved mystery like other characters. She's more of a character who was going to be important. But in the end, she never actually became one. And well, friends, these were all the characters who mysteriously disappeared in Poppy Playtime. Leave a comment if we missed any. We'll be reading them.